G'day Internet. You may notice that there's two RX8 seats in the RX7 here, and one of them is not exactly installed correctly at the moment, and that's what we're working on. So the floor is done enough. I still have to make a flat piece for here, but that's going to be really easy. I need to do this before we paint the floor because I made the mistake of trying to fit this seat in after I painted the floor, and I scratched the crap out of it when I was like prototyping things and fitting stuff in and yada yada. So we're going to do it before we paint anything. And also I have all of this to do. We're going to wait until all of the bodywork is done, or all of the floor is done, before we paint the whole thing, because getting the paint gun out is a pain in the butt. So yeah, we're going to do that, but what we're working on now is fitting this seat in here. So on the driver's side, the seat rail configuration is very straightforward and symmetrical. You basically have slightly angled bits of metal with a hole, and the bracket lines up with that at a bit of an angle. It's not quite straight up and down. So in the rear, on the passenger side here, it is normal, and this one is normal. We'll talk about that in a second. And over here, because of this bulge, because of the stock catalytic converter being here, this is like a stud that comes up at a weird angle like that. So what our plan is we're going to start working around it clockwise. We're going to fit this one in. So this one, I'm actually going to use the RX8 stock bracket, and it's the only RX8 stock bracket we're going to use. Use two of these on the front over there on the driver's side. I was able to use two RX8 stock rails, or stock bracket thingies. But over here we're not going to be able to, this is going to be totally custom. But first we got to figure out, once this is on there and attached to the seat, where that lines things up back here. I think making these back brackets is going to be pretty easy, so we'll do that, the back brackets, and then we'll see what the hell's going on with this thing. I didn't notice this until I rewatched the video that I just recorded. This, right here, does not line up with that. It's off by a bit. That's good to note. So, okay, weird. And I forgot to explain this. So, just like on the driver's side, the rails on the RX8 seats are pretty much exactly 1.5 inches wider. So, I measured things out, and I was thinking about how I could drill a small hole just big enough for the threads of the bolt, and then put a nut behind it, and then weld that in, through the piece of metal, if you know what I mean. But that's going to be really difficult. I thought about drilling a hole back here so that I could put the nut in, but that's going to sacrifice the integrity of the doodad. So what I decided to do is accept that it's going to have another millimeter or two, barely even, of stick out, and I welded a nut in there. So I took one of these flanged nuts that is the exact same thread as the stock one, and I drilled this out with a step drill bit until it was the right size so that the flange would rest on it, and then I welded that in. I'm actually kind of proud of that one. Looks pretty good. So next I'm going to bolt that onto the seat, bolt it onto the car, and see where this lines up. This looked like it was lining up pretty good with this seat, so I wonder if the RX8 has the same sort of geometry where this rail is shifted that way or something. I don't know. Also, I didn't do that. These came with those stains already. I have no comment. I'm great at finding new and novel ways to hurt myself. I was just installing a nut in the bottom of the seat rail with the automatic ratchet, and as soon as the nut seated down all the way, all the torque transferred into my hand, and it shoved my hand right against the frame rail, or whatever the heck you call this, the sill, and friggin' look at that. It takes absolutely nothing to hurt yourself while you're working around sheet metal and stuff. On the bright side, we're doing something right, because that lines up perfectly, so we can slam a bolt in there, and that is our first anchor point. So I shoved a piece of wood under there after I screwed that in, and it is sitting about where it needs to sit, just to help me keep imagining things. So the bracket on this side, the passenger side of the passenger side, that's going to be pretty straightforward. You can see where the bolts are, so that's just going to be a bracket with a, you know, a bend in it. But over here, can you see what I see? So those two little stubs on the left in black that are coming down, those are the studs. And the bracket on the RX7 on the car is way over there. So I reckon we are going to weld the bracket on or screw the bracket on in the middle and not use those over there. It's probably what's going to happen. Unless we made some sort of bracket and like sniped it from over there and made a really long one. I don't know if that would work. Alright, we got bracket number 2 started. I'm copying this one that I stole from the driver's side because it is the same dimensions from what I can tell. So now we need to go and weld on another nut onto the floor of the car where this is supposed to go onto because, again, 1.5 inch difference. Alright, so I got good news and bad news. The bad news is that I sliced the bejesus out of my finger on a tiny little shard of metal that I couldn't even see. Really got it good. Ow. Good news. We got that bracket bolted in there. Also welded in the nut behind this piece of sheet metal so that that nut has somewhere to go into. Remember, it needs to be 1.5 millimeters wider. 1.5 inches wider. So that's a new hole, and I'm very happy with how that looks like it's lining up. Sorry, I know you can't see very much. So those are, you know, we basically just need to make holes so that those studs go through, and that's 2 out of 4 brackets done. Alright, check out what we got. This is the result of me scratching my head for a couple hours yesterday, wondering exactly what we were going to do. We could have made this with a more normal looking bracket, similar to what we had done over here, but the rail is kind of like the mount points on the car are shifted that way, like quite a bit. So this is where it actually should go. I considered having this rail at a different, you know, position compared to this one to make mounting it easier, but that would mean that the seat can't go back as far as it could if I did it properly like this. And I wasn't going to be happy with that. So we are welding this thick old boy onto here. Welded it like that. I already test fit it, And the studs that come down from the stock seat rails, like that, but on the back side, goes right in there, which is awesome. This also just happens to be the right height to match up with this, approximately. So it's really hard to gauge where to put things, because this is nice and on the floor, but this is like up here more. It's definitely higher, and I could go look at the RX7 stock rails, but we're just winging it. With this in that position, this is level with this. It's parallel with this. So that's good enough for me. I'm trying not to overthink it and also trying not to underthink it. Just enough to get the job done, you know what I'm saying? So obviously that's not very secure, because this is, you know, this is at a sharp angle and this is parallel with the floor. So where did I put my tiny little... This is the next piece of the puzzle. This little piece of metal. We're gonna put that in there and weld her up. Check it out, yo. So all of the weight is getting transferred directly from the seat rail into what I've created there. So the fact that this is hanging back here is not really that big of a deal. It's going to position it, and all the weight's going directly down into the car, so it's not like it's pushing down on this thing that's hanging off the side. So I'm very happy with that. So that's 3 out of 4 done. Wow, we're just cruising through these. But now for the most difficult one by far. Oh no, this is getting caught up in there. Stay. So, really, we need to connect these 2 studs to this stud. It's at a bit of an angle difference. We can deal with that. Alright, that last one didn't really fit at all, but it gave me the information that I needed to make this next one to try. It does a twist, and it does a step down so that there's room for the studs to do the stud thing. It's fully in there. Check that out. Look at that custom bracketry. Everything fits in there just nicely. Whole thing is bolted down. Let's go. So now I gotta take a seat in here, and then we're gonna yank the seat out and continue on with the floor, and then we're gonna paint the floor, put this back in here. Alright, imagine you're about to come on a drive with me in the RX7. We're gonna go for a sick brap. Oh man, that's so much legroom. That is so much legroom, it's not even funny. Alright, cool. So I'm like pretty laid back right now, but we're in the seat. That's friggin' awesome. So can we slide it up without any issues? Yeah. It's like a fully installed seat. Hell yeah. Alright. That's another pretty big task out of the way. Thank you for watching.